Is there any public comment? No? Public. Okay. Move on to the consent agenda items.
Make sure that nobody received any emails prior to 3:30
Oh.
today.
Did not.
No.
Consent agenda items, it's going to be the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Directors held on July 7th of 2021. Also, the departmental reports of the Board of Public Utilities operation reports and financial statements for June of 2021. The bills and accounts for period ending July 31st of 2021. The power supply cost projections.
Where are we getting feedback? This later.
Yeah. Consent agenda items.
Hey, Pat, he's back here.
The MERS defined benefit.
Technology, gotta love it.
What you need? Do we not need the microphones on? I turned them on.
I don't know. Oh, let's keep them.
Okay, the MERS defined benefit pension plan statement for the quarter ending on June 30th of 2021. Is there any questions in regards to any of those reports or minutes? I'll need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Support.
We got a motion of support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Had to double check. Any opposed? Passes.
Introductions.
Yep, introductions.
So, Brian, will you come up and do some introductions real quick, please? Damien and Eric, come on up. Brian was off this afternoon, so I don't mind him coming in.
At the golf course.
Yeah.
I was gonna change, but I didn't quite make it.
No worries. There's no worries. No pictures.
So I'm gonna introduce Damian Cole, who is working at the water plant on the sewer truck, helping Eric Heine out. And that's it, right?
Yep, just have him introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and move forward. Remove your hat, please. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Damien.
Hi, I'm Damien, working for the water department now. I have been here once as a contractor and once as a OJT student in the IT department as well, so y'all probably know me a little bit. Pursuing school while also working at the BPU.
He also is a former star athlete on the e-sports at Davenport University in Grand Rapids. So anyway, I like to always pick on Damien a little bit. We're very happy to have Damien back. We don't know if we'll have him in this role very long. But again, he's working out great. And again, he's still working his way through college and doing those type things. So welcome to the board. So
glad to have you.
Thank you. Next gentleman is Eric Duda. Eric joined our telecommunications staff. Eric, like day 8 on the job already. So Eric, why don't you give us a little bit about your background?
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Eric Duda. I'm originally from the suburbs outside of Detroit, Anchor Bay, New Baltimore, Chesterfield area. Graduated class of 97. Spent 10 years in construction. About 2008, things got pretty rough, so I needed to reinvent myself, and that's when I got in the communications industry. I started at the bottom as a technician with WOW Internet Cable and Phone. In about 2017, they purchased a market out in what they called the Mid-Michigan markets center, some cities outside of Lansing. There's 11 counties that they service. They didn't service every city, but definitely hit every county, 11 counties out that way. And transferred out there to become a lead technician. I had about 13 technicians that kind of reported to me, and then supervisor kind of role. And then City Marshall developed a fiber optic system. At least that was kind of the rumor. And I had done fiber for our business customers at WOW, but it was just strictly for our business customers. Everything else was over coax. And so I wanted to expand that knowledge, and then applied at City Marshall. Spent about 2.5 years roughly with City Marshall's fiber, helped that get going. We installed right about 1,800 customers. And then opportunity opened up in the line crew. I spent some time in there. And then I missed customer interaction. I really enjoyed that. There's a little level of satisfaction when you go to somebody's house, you knock the door, you introduce yourself and explain to them what you're going to do. And So you don't really get that in the line work. So I missed that, and then saw that Coldwater was doing the same thing. Of course, I knew Jim Selby from Aspen. They did the build there as well, and Marshall, so kind of a bit of a connection there, and then applied here and got the job, so I'm happy to be here. Exciting.
Married, 4 kids?
Married, 4 kids, yes, that aspect of it also. My wife's a preschool teacher.
Awesome.
My oldest is 11. I got 2 boys, 2 girls. The girls are younger.
We're very glad to have Eric join our team. Obviously, he brings a lot of experience to kind of round out our team. We've got some inexperience, and now we've got some experience. So between our now staff now, we've already seen an increase in the speed of some of our installations. So this is going to really start going, and I think we'll hear later from Pat and how we're doing with the installations so far. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Damon, you're more than welcome to go home. Brian, you don't have to stick around if you got other things to do. You didn't need to come in. So anyway, thanks, Damon. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. First is going to be the MERS 2020 Defined Benefit Plan accrual.
The most exciting thing of the night. So,
for this.
yeah.
One accountant to the other.
Hey.
It's not bad if it's up.
Yeah.
If it's not up, it's
Well,
bad. Okay, it's bad.
Yeah. It's not bad. It can always be better, right? Anytime you
It's
invest.
never been great, so.
It's getting
Go
better.
ahead, Tom.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Good evening. Jeff, you can, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the, basically, the actuarial reports come out once a year. They're based on a calendar year. So they come out in June. So we're gonna talk about the most recent report, which is based on 12/31/2020. Just some of the facts for last year. The BPU contributed $960,000 into the plan. Market rate for our plan was 12%, a little over 12%. The smooth rate, which is the actuarial rate, basically how they calculate things, because they don't like to have things going crazy up and down every year. The actuarial rate was 8.17%. That's based roughly on a 5-year average of the market rates. Because of the strong earnings in both 19, when I think we earned about 13%, and in 2020, the actuarial rates that MERS is using, what the report is based on, are actually conservative to the market. Now, that's the first time I've seen that in 8 years, and I don't know, Jeff's been here for, what, 50 years? Jeff?
Yeah, used to see it.
So I think that's uncommon. It's a good thing, because now when we're looking at the report, we're actually looking at a conservative figure. As to the past, we were looking at things, nobody liked the numbers, but the worst part was the bad numbers we were looking at, they were really worse than that. So you can flip that over. All right, so just basically a summary of where we went from the end of 19 to 20. With the strong market performance, our unfunded liability decreased by about $600,000. We still have an unfunded liability of about $5.5 million, which is significant, but it is better than it was a year ago with the strong performance in the market. And our funded percentage officially has increased from 59% to 62%. It's actually even a little better than that because of the fact that they did some changes last year. And if you actually went back and tried to compare apples to apples between 19 and 20, 19 would actually have been at 57%. So we have made some strides in the last year. The one thing that happened in 2020 outside of just the normal day-to-day activities was MERS completed a demographic study. Basically went through and looked at all the assumptions, longevity rates, death rates, when people retire, all those sorts of things, and those things got updated last year, and the current information is now part of our plan. All right. That didn't necessarily help us, by the way. How did we get to this place of being $5.5 million underfunded? Essentially, it's the fact that asset growth just hasn't kept up with liabilities over the years. Even though the city and the BPU, both plans have paid in now, the last couple of years, more than what MERS has asked us to. But even though we've been keeping up with the requirements, just keeping up with the requirements hasn't been enough, because mainly because of the fact that, MERS has set these long-term growth assumptions, and then things haven't kept up with those necessarily. And what happened was, in 2015, MERS took their rate that had been 8% for many, many years, and they reduced their projections to 7.75%, which then you got to factor that out for 30 years. That really decreased everything. And at the same time, they took the unfunded amounts and then decided, hey, we're getting a lot of pressure from the government, basically. We have all these huge unfunded liabilities, and now we're going to make people actually pay them off. Previously, the unfunded amounts just kind of rolled forward every year, and it was like, oh, we owe this money, but next year came and you still owed that money, and no one was really accountable. Well, now we're all accountable for it. And so they installed basically a fixed amortization length into these things, and so you were either being amortized off over 10 years generally if your plan was closed, and generally 13 years if your plan was not closed. Our plan is closed, thus we're penalized a little bit extra. So if we flip that over, Jeff.
Yeah, this is always kind of where I always get a little upset, because it's almost like they took a 30-year mortgage and said, now you got paid off in 10. And that's caused us rough.
So we fast forward to 2019. MERS continues to do their studies. They reduced their long-term assumption down from 7.75% to 7.35%. Then, like I said, they updated the demographics this past year. And so, the sum of all that is it's just left us with a lower funding percentage than we would have wanted to be. As I said, because our plan is closed, we're being actually penalized because of the fact that just in the world of MERS, they're saying, hey, you're closed, so that's a negative, which we think of that as a positive. But anyway, they're making us pay it off at a quicker rate than if we were actually open. And based, again, on all that, I'll make one final comment on the last screen. So our payments that we're making, our required payments this next year, let's say our requirements are about $900,000. 93% of the money that we're paying in is basically to pay off old debts. Very little of it is actually based on current. So what we're looking at here essentially is a chart, just a historical chart showing what has happened, the changes that we've had to make in our payment structure, essentially between 2009 and current. If you go back to 2009, we were paying in roughly $200,000 and probably complaining about it. Fast forward to now, we're paying in almost $1 million. The blue represents that's our required payments. So you can see what we started doing a couple of years ago. We just started paying a little bit extra. And then in 2018 and 19, we just made the decision that we had to make a change. And so we really bumped up our payments. And so the last couple of years, we paid significantly more than what we've had to pay. And what's happened for the last 3 or 4 years is we've been accumulating that extra money in a surplus fund. And that fund just sits there on the side, and then it grows. And we've been fortunate because, again, it's grown 13% 2 years ago, 12% this year. That's basically the way to make money. Go forward to the next slide, and now we're looking at the future. The blue line represents the forecast of our required payments. And you can see the blue line is actually the first couple of years of that are going up before we see a significant decrease. The red line represents the fact that we have this surplus fund of money that we expect to be closer to $800,000 in a year or so. It basically says, hey, it's time to start pulling money out of our surplus because we're getting closer and closer to where we can actually, you can see whatever line you follow, you can see the end now, where we couldn't see the end a few years ago. We actually can see a point where things get better for our payments. And so basically what we're saying is, hey, we got this money in the surplus. Now it's probably time to start pulling it out. Even if we pull out $100,000 next year and $200,000 the year after. And that's what that red line represents. That represents just kind of a really rough estimate of what we hope to do over the next couple of years. We met with MERS. We meet with MERS every year. And up until the last couple of years, they haven't wanted to extend. We keep asking, hey, we're not going anywhere. The city, the BPU aren't shutting down in 5 years. We're going to be here. Can you give us a little bit of relief? And so that's what MERS is right now kind of working on, extending out our payments. Even if you extended out our payments 2 years, that's probably $150,000 a year. So we'd like to get our payments down from $1 million a year to, let's say, $700,000 and then 600 and so on and so forth. That's kind of the plan, because right now we're at $1 million now. If we go out and look at 2031, we're down to 800, or we're down to $200,000. And we'd like to be able to, again, slope down versus being so high for 5 or 6 years and then going like this.
So then in 2032 we're done?
We are not really done, but basically what that is that's when the amortization period of all this unfunded, but all the money that was really pre-2015, that's when that all gets paid off. And so we're going to be at a place, in theory, where we'd be close to 100% funded, and then your payments on a year-to-year basis are really only what you're actually incurring, on that year. And so when we can get to that place, because of the fact that we're closed, we're not bringing in new people into the plan. We just have the number that's dwindling, meaning our current employees that are in the plan, as well as our retirees. We're just dealing with those factors at that time.
And one of my major complaints is that the people who are paying electric bills, and this is the same on the city side too, our customers, our residents the current residents are being penalized, even though we're gonna be paying this for a long time. Why are we trying to gather all the money now? Let's spread this over, because this is stuff that has been occurred years ago. But now we're all of a sudden gonna hit everybody hard right now for the next 5 years, and then we're gonna hit this cliff again. Why are we penalizing the current ratepayers today when this could be on a very easy slope all the way to the end? We're gonna probably make some changes. Tom and I have talked at length about this, but we'll probably do another $1 million for this year, because it's already been budgeted. We're gonna keep going with what we have. But after that, I think we're gonna start seeing this drop 800, 900. And even though our funding percentage will drop lower, we'll eventually be at the same point. It might be, instead of 2031, that's $200,000. That might be 2035, but we really don't care. For us, it's about rate relief, and it's also about, and property in what you pay for your, the retirement millage on the city side. Like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're not going bankrupt. We're not going out of business. So it really makes no difference how long it takes us to pay this back. MERS understands that. They don't like it, but we're also not looking to making changes to the plan either. So anyway.
What happens if the rate of return is significantly lower than the 7.35?
That's problem. So right now, the long-term assumption is it's a little over 7%. If we go, and again, we're at this place where we actually have built up a little bit in the fact that our market rate is, everything we're showing is actually a little rosier than that. So we have about a 3% play in there. So let's just say this year was at 5%. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot this year, but as we go forward, let's say next year, negative 5%. Well, you know what that does to an average, and that's going to have an effect. That what happens is that goes, whatever they consider, we'll call it the loss of that year, that goes into a pot, a layer, let's call it, LIFO inventory, if anybody's familiar with that, and that gets amortized off over this period of time. Right now, it's being amortized off over 5 or 8 years. So it doesn't. What MERS tries to do is to smooth everything. So even though the last 2 years have been great, it hasn't really affected us in a tremendously positive amount. But the same thing is if it's really bad for a couple of years, they really try to smooth everything. In fact, the thing that's negative, this past year, one of the things that changed, we finally got rid of the 2007 and 2008 recession, because they used to smooth it over 10 years, and those numbers were still stuck into our actual rate until this past year. So, a couple fun facts up there. We've got 10 active employees left in the BPU plan. We've got 5 former employees that are vested in the plan, and we have 35 either retirees or their beneficiaries that are drawing from the plan. And you can see the average age of our retirees it's getting up there.
We probably 5 of the active will be retiring probably within 2 years. So that number will be cut in half in just a short period of time. No, Brian, you're not retiring either. So
Yeah, we got 2 of our actives. There's only 3 people sitting out here, and 2 of them are our actives. So. And we just hired Jim, so it's not him.
Yeah, we always make fun. Brian always threatens me with retiring, so anyway, but anyway.
Well, that's based on their earnings back when the plan was closed.
No, it's based on for the active employees, it's their most recent 3 years of earnings. So,
Oh, okay.
so let's use, when Dwight Woodman retired, he used his highest 3 years of earnings is what came into this formula.
Okay, so just close the new employees, but
Yeah, it just means no new employees are
Yeah,
entering.
it was closed versus frozen. Two different things.
And this is also one of the things that I don't think MERS did a very good job with. Is not, when we close our plan, they should have known that there's no new money coming in, and they probably should have, in hindsight, I could have predicted it too as well. We should have paid more earlier, and we would have spread those costs over, but we just paid what they told us to every time. And in hindsight, their returns didn't average what they wanted to, and so, yeah, no fingers are being pointed. Maybe. So, but it's just, I could have figured it out myself too, but.
I mean, I remember talking about this 11, 12 years ago, and we thought 2021, 2022 would be our drop off.
Correct.
And we're lagging 7 years because of the underperforming that we've had for some years. Obviously, it's a little bit better now, but yeah, that kind of hurts, and it keeps dragging out these payments, and that's why these payments now are $1 million. They weren't supposed to be that.
Never. Right.
what's the liability on the city side?
The unfunded portion is just about the same, strangely enough. The city plans, it's bigger just because there were more people in it. But the unfunded amount is about $5 million, so very similar. That plan actually goes out a little bit longer. I think it's about 2034, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been doing the same thing on that side where we've been putting in extra money. This is actually in a little better situation here because we're now at this point of, hey, I think we can start drawing from our surplus just to smooth out about the next 5 years is really the key.
We always have the ability, we talked about this, we use some excess reserves to pay off some other debt. This is one way we could do it. We've kicked it around. The city can't invest in stocks and bonds. I mean, MERS does because that's what they do. So probably if we, again, using hindsight, we're going to get 13% return on our money by putting money into MERS this year. That's better than our 1 or 2%. Well, actually, probably our half. Probably 3 basis points that we're getting right now in our investments because it's so bad. But we've kicked it around. We don't think it's prudent at this point, but we've been paying it right along. So.
And this year, 2021, we've actually increased our market value from 9 million to 9.7 million. So it's been very significant this year. Obviously, we understand we've had real positive rates. Rates in the second half of the year probably will not be what they were in the first half, but even if we can keep it relatively stable, we should have another year where we outperform that 7.35%. And every time you do that, you build in a cushion for basically what John asked about, because even though everybody's happy we've had these 2 great years, but unfortunately there is an average, and that average may be around 8%. So whenever you have a year that you make 12 or 13%, the bad year's coming. Whether it's next year, I don't know. Maybe John knows, but it's coming. We're going to have that -5 year. It's coming.
When Moss retires.
Anyway, but the report is in here if anybody needs trouble sleeping at night, but they got some other graphs, so.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the Willowbrook sanitary sewer upgrade.
So let me get there. So if you recall, we are looking to sell the property on Willowbrook to a developer for housing, for an apartment complex. There is some concerns, again, that we may need to upgrade the sewer project. I don't think I included the map. Basically, it would go from North Drive, which is that little road right there by Hampton Inn. There would be a connection there. We somehow have to tie back to the place. It used to be Chemical Bank. It's now, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, thank you. And so it tie in, run a new sanitary sewer line across over there. in talking with the city, we've estimated that, our proceeds of that is $420,000. I didn't think it was prudent for the BPU to pay all of that cost of the sanitary sewer. So a arrangement was worked out with Keith to say we will pay 25%, they will pay 75%. They're going to get the tax base, we'll get some utility revenue, but they also get the pilot. So kind of looking at the numbers and working through where those numbers are. It is mutually beneficial for both the city and BPU to enter into this. But I didn't have the authority to give away that kind of money without your approval. So really, in this case, it's really just us changing some of the sanitary. It still may not be needed. I want to be clear that it's not a guaranteed we'll spend that money. We're just being prepared in case it is, so we don't have to come back to the board or have any issues about it. This does provide a little bit of return to our ratepayers for holding that land for so long. So there has been a rate of return on there, which would be better than what we'd earned if it was money in the bank. So that would be beneficial. And then the future, obviously, when the apartments get built, that will be a good thing. And if the apartments get built and they don't need to upgrade the sewer, that's even better. But currently, not sure what they did back when that area was originally developed. They did some things that were probably good at the time, but have really hamstrung us for the future. I can't believe what we allowed, but it's done and it's over with, and you can't change it. But in order for us to really do it the right way, we would have to tear up the entire parking lot of Gander's parking and where that pipe currently exists. And that's really not feasible. So that's why we really thought this might be a better way to at least run that pipe, hopefully in a little different fashion. So Brian's here to answer any other questions, but in essence, all I'm looking to do is just a approval of the cost allocation of 25% when this is done. Again, it might not even be needed, and get that approval today versus, so it's kind of in.
The total cost is 400,000, our share would be 100.
That's correct.
Rough,
And
okay.
right now, that cost is still an engineering estimate.
Right.
It's not, it could be plus or minus some number. So, any questions?
So you want to approve a 25% share essentially?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve 25% share.
Got a motion, a second? All in favor? Say aye.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
John.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I was just a delayed eye.
That's okay. I was looking at it, I was getting ready to say it. So. Next on the agenda is the sanitary sewer capacity.
Yeah, so along the same lines, we wanted to kind of show you what that issue was. There's two big items that we talked about. So this is this Willowbrook 8-inch main at North Drive that's predicted to be over capacity. And this is if both apartments were to develop at exactly the same time. Now, if they're done in phases, it might be that the flow doesn't exceed the 7 state standards that will require it to automatically be done by DEQ. However, if in the planning phase, if they come at the same time, Eagle may require us to upgrade that pipe. So that's number one. The second big item is just talking about the 15-inch interceptor. It's right at capacity, but what we had them do is look at all the future areas that would be available for development and said, well, what if they were to put housing in all of them? What would that capacity be? So we tried to, this is where we tried to put on our, rub the magic 8 ball and rubber crystal ball to kind of see, but none of these may ever be developed, but we just try to say, what would be the worst case scenario? Assuming the worst case scenario, and I know this comes back to the discussions we've had in the past about worrying about capacity, it's still a concern, but it's not the concern it was 2 years ago. A couple things that we've done is we've done a lot to remove the water infiltration in various areas. If you've heard us talking about lining the pipes and fixing the lift stations, that has done very well. Brian Musselman and crew has done a great job working with Fishbeck to identify those areas and remove that water infiltration. So again, there's no immediate urgency that we had maybe 2 years ago. So here's kind of the map, and I know this is hard to read, so I'm just going to cover the big area first and kind of show you. I'm going to blow this up. Bear with me just a second. So what we did, maybe didn't blow that a little too far. So one of the things that we decided to do, and this is actually in the wrong spot. So they assumed 234 RUs. This is really should be up one area. They just drew it wrong on the map here, but that should be here by the water tower. So this is also based on, the spring 2020 flow monitoring. They said how many gallons per day does everybody use, and took some of the peaking factors. So what they did, whoa, gosh, I don't like that. So if these two properties were to develop, the issue is the pipe currently comes down Willowbrook, comes to the Hampton Inn, comes down halfway, and then there's a point where these two will meet. So if this new Willowbrook apartments get built and Carriage Circle, all this flow kind of comes here at the same point. Now you can kind of see when I talked about what would happen if we had to bust up that pipe. This is where the pipe is right in front of Gander Mountain. If you can imagine what that would do, that would not be real wise. And we would never design something like this today. But you can kind of see all this flow would be coming down to one pipe, which again, the pipe should have been bigger to start with. But again, thinking about what would happen, probably 20 years ago, they never thought we'd be developing apartments in that area. Of course, things changed, and so all that comes to this lift station. So this is where they're saying that this 8-inch capacity would be exceeding the balance of this lift station. So that is really just the big concern, is overflowing this lift station downstream. This lift station runs on and off a little bit now. Now this thing would run almost 24/7, correct, Brian? Okay, thank you. And feel free to chime in whenever you want. So that capacity is kind of an issue from that aspect. So that was issue number one. But we think that depending on the timing, how things go, we might be able to be okay. Or we will have to, as I mentioned, put a new sanitary sewer. This would be if we had to spend that $400,000, run this along the right of way, and then somehow tie it back into this lift station here. So again, if you could follow the cursor, this is North Street, would follow Willowbrook across, and then have to either go in front of TFC, or TCF, sorry, and then tie into this lift station. Again, you can kind of see what problems that would create. It's not a great situation. This all should have been in the right of way where it should have been, or at least near the street, but it wasn't. So this is what we have. The second issue is looking at all this flow. We actually looked, I'm going to back it up just a little bit here. And what we did is, looking at this area kind of here, we're going to fix some of this with some pipe lining here. But we assumed that all the area behind the Big Boy apartment, the old Big Boy used to be Los Tequilas is now, we assumed that those were all going to be apartments, that there were going to be apartments over here behind Culver's. We also added some other apartments in some other areas and said, what if they were all apartments, and how much flow would we have? You can kind of see that the biggest thing that originally last year, because this is only a 12-inch capacity pipe, that right now it's within capacity. A year ago, before we took the I&I out, that was going to be a big issue. So Brian, working with his folks down here at the Sauk River kind of development, we've had a lot of people, because that's a really low area, a lot of wetlands. They took the water that they were pumping out of their basements, instead of pumping it into their sanitary drain, just pumped it back out on the ground. So you can't pump your storm water into the sanitary sewer. So it was kind of overwhelming that. So we found some of the violations and fixed that so that this groundwater is no longer being pumped into our sanitary sewer, which has opened up quite a bit of pipe capacity. So you can kind of see these areas along this 15-inch interceptor is now within capacity. Again, don't ask me why, but it comes down this road, then it goes up, then it comes over, then it comes down again, then it ties into the big capacitor, which runs along the river. That interceptor along the river, this also assumes that the tall grass development is also developed. That the tall grass development, any of these things in purple are all things that we felt are potentially, so we tried to visualize the future. If things were to change, there is some things that we could change, some flows. So for instance, instead of this flow going from, this is by the DMS building, so instead of it going from west to east, we would reroute this and take this flow east to west. So if there was more development here, that flow would actually come down to J Street and have enough capacity. So I know that's a long way to say that capacity is always an issue, especially when you're dealing with sanitary sewer. But right now, I think we're in good shape. There is a little concern about the apartments coming in at the same time. But if we had all these other, potential that we've always talked about, what if these things happen, there would be enough capacity. So, but it does show that at some point, when this is at full capacity, if all these things happen, there's not much more we want to add there without having to re-engineer the flows, reverse the flow in another direction. With that, I'll answer any questions you have. Or Brian will. Brian, anything to add?
The lift station itself has line that comes North Avenue, the 2 lines that dive in, they come to the lift station. Can't handle it, all that. We upgraded that lift station. Years ago, 12 years ago.
At least probably now. So.
That has capacity. Full switch.
And this is what's on, he was talking about, these 2 pipes here, this is the pipe that's coming down. So.
Since I retired.
I'll reject it.
I've been doing that a lot too myself. So. Glad that was just an update, so no action required, but just if any questions.
Okay. Next on the agenda is agreement number A21-15, the Angola Road Farm Lease.
Yeah, so we have 6 acres. I'm just going to show you the map real quick. So this is where it's located. So if you know where Case Welding is or the Ochabetas Orchard out that way, we have a young farmer who would like to farm this property here. It's roughly 6 acres. He's going to farm potentially 4 of it. He would like to remove some of the trees to only farm eventually we'll be able to farm about 5 acres, but he's going to cut down some of these trees, which are basically, they're scrub trees. They're not like, any major trees at all. So he can square it up so he can actually get his equipment in and out of there. We have offered this to, I personally have offered this to at least 3 other farmers whose equipment, they said, it's just too big. But this young farmer, Corey Post, is willing to do this. It saves us from mowing it. He's going to kind of maintain this and kind of get in the shape where he can farm it. So as you can see on the agreement, there's actually no rent on that property for the first 2 years, and then $75 a rent from there. While $75 is cheaper property, he is doing some of the work to clean it up himself, and then in addition, it's still a very small piece, so it's not, and again, it's kind of more for our maintenance purposes of keeping it cleaned up than anything else. But we also want a full disclosure that Corey Post is a BPU employee. So we just want to make sure that, and since it's going to the city council, because all leases have to, there'll be plenty of public, if somebody else were to come in and say, hey, no, I'll do it for something else, they're more than welcome. So this isn't giving Corey any special accommodations, and that's the one thing we just want to make sure that we pointed out.
Did we get all the concrete removed off the property?
No.
We're working on, okay. I saw us digging it up and stuff out there, so I just questioned that.
Yeah, and we were doing that anyway, so we're not doing it because of Corey. We would remove the concrete for anybody who wanted to take that part out. That was our responsibility. And this still might be a deal breaker where he gets in the middle and finds out there's something else there. So again, there used to be a building on there where we tore down, so.
Well, that used to be a drive-in, right?
I heard there's, on the concrete with the sign.
I heard there might be some holes still in the ground, so
Yeah.
Really?
So it could be a moot point.
you must be too young.
He's willing to take the risk, right?
That's fine. We need a motion, if there's not any questions first.
I'll move.
Second.
Got a motion, a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Motion passes. Next is the Aspen Wireless Progress Report. Pat, it's up to you.
We're gonna see if this is working. Pat, do you wanna?
I'm working my way.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to bring it up. You need me to bring it up, Pat, or you? Okay, what's up?
It's like a hologram. Did you just walk in here?
Yeah, oh, yeah. He's everywhere. Thanks, Terry.
All over.
Have a good night.
All right. Yeah, have a good night, Terry. Yeah, so phase 2 of the fiber project still going along pretty well. If you want to pop to the next slide, I did make this a lot smaller, so we're not having to go through as many slides. We're pretty much on the back of the house stuff. We're still messing around a little bit in the sonar, but the Plume Wi-Fi, we got some good news there. They were able to bring the supplies back up online, so we really didn't have to tell any customers they couldn't get Plume, and we're starting to get things going there. So that's all going pretty well. I will remind you that this presentation is on construction. It's not on actually installations. Jody can talk more about that, but this is a construction one. So if you want to drop down to the next one. So yeah, this is kind of the chart I've been working on. The yellow is stuff that's in progress. Gray has not been started. Then the different levels of green, you can kind of tell if it's dark green, it's 100% done and it's ready. And if it's a lighter green, it's not quite there yet. So we got 3 nodes online, about 150 customers connected. And we are currently in quality control round 1 of node 5. Which they expect to be complete before the end of the week here. Our plan going forward is to try to get 2 nodes QC'd fully in a month now, per month, until we either catch up with Aspen or we run out of construction. It's over. So the plan from 5 is going to be jumping over to, as soon as they get quality control round 1 done, they're going to jump on to node 13 and finish that up, because that one's been sitting for a little while, and the folks that did the splicing on that are in market still, but we're not sure how much longer they're going to be in market, so we want to make sure that we get the corrections while they're still around. From there, then we'll work back to 6 and 7 to get those going. So those will probably be next month. And then after that, it looks like node 4 and 12 are probably going to be the next ones coming up. And I think that by the time we get 2 months in, those will be ready for us. And I think it's just going to kind of flow that way. We do have a full lineup of folks now with the addition of Eric Duda. So we've been able to focus people to do this quality control rather than splitting away from the installation calendars. And the installation calendars are stacking up. It looks like it's pretty full out through towards the end of August. So there's some openings here and there inside of there. So if somebody wants to get connected, and I will remind people, I would have brought it up if I had control of it. But if you go to our website, you go to fiber, or if you just go to gigcitymichigan.com, there's a map on there that's totally searchable. So people can enter their address. I believe Travis Mackian did that, and that's how he got connected. So you want to, is anything else on that slide? Now, if you want to move on to the next one, this is the budget. Everything's still looking pretty good on the budget. I think that surplus is probably not going to be quite that high, because I'm not sure. I think we've got pretty much all the materials we need. Aspen's not going to change. I don't think we have anything out of scope that's going to jump up and bite us at this point. But that $370,000 number for construction, I'm not sure if that's going to cover all the rest of the splicing. But you can see we were well under budget anyway. That one's just a factor. It looks like when I've seen it at 369, I'm thinking, that might be a little tight with as many nodes as we have left for splicing. If you go to the next one, this is the last mile cost. It changed very little, but these are the costs to actually get to the house that weren't in the budget. And of course, this was based on 1,900 customers. So, but we are ordering this stuff earlier and earlier through the whole process because the lead times are just getting crazier and crazier as we go. That's really, I think, all I have for you. So if you have any questions.
So they found the extra plume units,
So they were still,
deep sea diving?
no, they didn't dive in and get them, but they did, they've been producing them in China and apparently they were able to get some ships, get them on some ships and get them over here. So, but yeah. And I think that, that partnership we have with NRTC is helping us quite a bit there and that we're a little bit more priority. If we were kind of on our own, I think we'd be waiting a little longer. So I think that's a nice partnership to have. So, or not our NRTC, NCTC. There's so many of them, so many acronyms, National Cable Television Co-op.
So a couple things I just want to point out. Jody, I put you on the spot. We're scheduling out now till mid-August-ish.
That's just
How many per week? 2 per day.
Should be 10 a week, 40 a month
Right.
with one crew.
Right.
And bringing Eric on, hopefully will expedite that learning crew so we can either do 3 or 4 a day. That would be ideal. Especially if you got 2 crews, that should be 4 a day, no problem. But if we can sneak a third one, then that, obviously makes it 6 a day. That can be kind of tight because there is a lot of work that needs to be done with it. So, yeah, I think we're well on our way. So I just know from, my goal is always 1,200 within the next year. So a year from now, we should be at, once construction's done. So probably if the construction's done October-ish is what we're hoping, we should be 1,200 customers between that. Because Jody and Pat get a steak dinner. So, or whatever, dinner of their choice when that happens. So that was kind of the deal I made with them. So they got a little incentive. Anyway, but we're at 150 customers now, which Pat says is already over 10%. So he's 10% of the way there. So
Yeah, and I will, that October number is an Aspen projection. If I were to ask Bob Worley if he was standing in the room, he would say, no, it's probably going to be a little later than that. But of course, it wasn't supposed to be completed until February of next year. So we got a little wiggle room there as well. But
we got to remember, if the winter is mild, we can do underground. But if the winter is like normal, that will delay the project till next summer. But we are ahead of it. Jody and her crew, the ladies downstairs are just doing a phenomenal job getting people signed up, telling them the advantages of this system versus being on our old system. So things are really moving forward. And again, thanks to all those people doing the work because they're really doing a great job with that. There will be a time where we'll have to do the bad call of saying, hey, we're going to turn you off. You either can switch to our new fiber because there's some people who just haven't switched yet. We're waiting till so if all of a sudden the calendar all of a sudden says we're getting a little more sporadic, that will happen in certain nodes because just like we did with our old cable television went to Skidder, we do have to switch it over. We don't want to run parallel systems anymore. The sooner we can get off that, the better we are. And we'll probably do that node by node just because as soon as we're saying, hey, we got voids in the system, either sign on or go back to no cable or something of that nature. But we think that will be for now, we're going to keep everybody on and, we'll have to make those calls at some point in the future, but it'll be in the future, just in case anybody's wondering, well, how long can I keep on the old system? Well, we'd like to get you off now if you're like, so node 11, we still have several customers in that node that just haven't switched. They either are happy with what they are, don't need any more, or they're, because there's a little bit of a cost difference, but it's something that eventually but we're not raising the prices. We thought about raising the prices on those nodes to kind of push that a little bit. We're not going to do it until we feel that we can handle, because if we pull the plug, somebody's going to say, well, now sign me up. Well, if you don't have the capacity to sign people up. So anyway, that's a long winded to say things are going really well. Jody's crew, Pat's crew, Bob Worley, they're doing a fantastic job. Me, not so much, but they're doing a fantastic job.
What's the potential, like say for node 11? I mean, how many potential customers if everybody went to fiber, including
there's a little over
Spectrum?
500 potential customers in node 11. I think that's the number, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that's including, that's not just our customers.
Right.
Now that's just-
Spectrum and whatever else they have.
But we
Where's that at?
We'll
Where's
market
no?
harder. Well, so from a marketing standpoint, we got to market hard because calendars open up for installs. We're already on. So
Right.
once the tech side gets done QC, they want to make sure we'll hit it. Just with what we're doing. We're always at about a 3 week. That's how it's. Haven't had a single.
And I will say that, we've been really boxing Jody out. So she's been really wanting to get in there and she's throwing elbows and everything else. But, we're trying to make sure we get the product perfect before, probably a little too perfect before we get it marketed. And of course, she wants to get it out there, get the message out. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, making sure that we get that arranged right.
I think to Scott's question, so 500 or whatever, 6, I think, we've got 43, but we still have, Jody, if I had to pin you down on a number, in Node 11 on the old system, how many people are on the old system? At least probably 100 still, right?
Probably not even that. Over, didn't even marketed. Our own staff that nobody was done. A lot of it was, I think, our first that we got to really, probably a good thing, but not
Good potential, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were looking forward to when we can keep two crews going 3 weeks out. We don't want to schedule somebody, hey, your appointment's for 2 months. So
Yeah.
that's why we really aren't letting her do the marketing she'd like to do because we just don't have the capacity yet to start getting them.
Start out in a good foot, then
Yes.
word of mouth.
And we kind of learned our lesson a little bit from, we rolled out Skidder, maybe it was too fast. And so we're being a lot more cautious this time. And Pat keeps me and Jody in check because I want to go too. So
well,
it's
we
kind
were
of,
very excited with the product here.
Right.
It worked flawlessly here, obviously. Probably didn't really.
Exciting.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Public comment? Seeing none, move on to new business.
all I got is this director's report. So the power cost adjustment is there for you to read. We will introduce you to Eric as well as Damien. One quick item of note, we are working on installing an automated transfer switch. The cost of the switch itself is about $16,000, and then that's through Cummings, and then about $13,000 for the actual installation. So total cost will be $28,000. Again, under my spending limit, this is more maintenance, but I did want to just let you know that we're doing this. What it will do is currently right now, if we have a power outage, the staff has 30 minutes of which to get to the plant. If not, we have an overflow situation. I mean, and it's not the end of the world, not the greatest situation. So this will actually buy them a significant amount more time, but it will automatically switch to power directly to generator power in the event of a power outage. But 8 hours, they can run for 8 hours without bringing staff in, right? What extended?
More like
4
4
hours.
hours. Like, Senator has,
Oh, gotcha.
it gives them 4 hours a week.
Which is huge. So we felt that was something that we needed to upgrade on there. And for some reason, my screen went dark. All right, there we are, we're back. Waterworks Park, there's in the paper today, Brian's crew has helped clean up that park. It was kind of damaged by a bunch of people driving through the, parking in places they shouldn't be parking on the grass. So we've kind of closed it off for the area. That's really looking good. Brian's, eventually the plans are to upgrade the paving and get this, but this was kind of step one. But again, a lot of improvements. I don't know if you got anything else to add, Brian?
Not that bad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually online. There's a
Yeah, we
video
saw, I
of Brian
watched that
online.
today. So,
Any thought of like a boardwalk through there? I know that sounds kind of crazy, but
We have lots.
Walk
you know I had asked
They want to
something.
hear on the video.
We are looking at a lot of options. I mean, right now, we've talked to Fishbeck about lining up some angle parking through the one drive that's still open. And then down by the little green building and all that, paving all that, so we have actual structured parking there.
Mhm.
And then eventually, we'd like to tie the walk path all the way along the riverbank that isn't with the rocks and the flowers, not weeds.
Right.
And so we can tie that all in and make that all walking down there.
Mhm.
Couple bump outs over the rock and flower areas so people can go out and stand and look over the water. Lots of things we'd like to do. So they're all in the planning stages, so.
is that all fully funded by the BPU, that park? Because
Yes,
of our
sir.
wellheads
Yep.
and such, okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
So the goal would be to remove the road that is kind of along the river there and just make it a walking path there? Is that what you're
Yes, I would
thinking?
like to, if I get permission, I would like to close both drives off and just make extra parking in there and let people walk through there and not.
Okay.
If you've ever been in there before we started this,
Yes.
there was cars parked everywhere in the grass.
Oh, I know.
There was all kinds of debris and spaghetti and rice and everything else just poured on the ground to feed the ducks. And
Mhm.
it was just a mess. It was no place you'd want to take your kids to. Lots of other paraphernalia on the ground, dark, dingy, graffiti. It's not there anymore.
Right.
Brian and crew's done a great job.
No, it's
No,
it's definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
So obviously we get people to ask us why things are closed down and stuff, but as long as we have the information, go back at them on that, that's important.
I've got a great picture from one of the city council members that took a picture of a vehicle halfway between the river and the road, parked in the grass, and it was all mud. And she asked if we were going to do any improvements to the parking. Like, that's not parking.
No, and you know, people sometimes don't realize that there are erosion issues and, you know, we have to protect that and those are wildflowers. They're not, you know, they aren't weeds, so.
Yeah, we lost probably, I'd say 12 foot of bank between the road and the river up the part I closed off and redid the rehab.
Yep.
I remember mowing it, so there was 3 or 4 passes back and forth with a 60-inch deck. It's not there anymore.
Love to snap our fingers and have something beautiful, but you know, things take time, so appreciate, yes, exactly. Appreciate your hard work, Brian.
The next item is just the APPA newsletter. Again, just showing you that Jody and the marketing team's doing a great job. They always like putting us up there and we like getting that recognition. Everybody always want to know what was going on US 12. So these pictures are of US 12. That was a 27-foot deep sewer. Again, these pictures don't really do it justice, but this guy's looking down basically 3 stories. And this is what the bottom looks like. So actually, you see the bottom of this ladder, it goes to another ladder. So that's not even really the bottom. But you can kind of see these guys working in the bottom of that trench bank. And it was all just to repair this manhole. This manhole is basically just needs to be rehabilitated. So I wouldn't say it was destroyed, but needed to be repaired. If we're going to redo the street, now is the time to do the manhole. So again, we apologize for shutting the street down. I think Concord Excavating did a great job of getting it turned around so fast because they got right on it. And so, again, it took 1 day longer than was anticipated. And again, this is just another, you know, people don't realize what we do sometimes. In the picture of the guys working down, fixing water mains. This was on Pelton Street. Again, just another deep one on Pelton. But again, just what we do on a daily basis. And I believe that is then my report, unless you guys have any
I
questions.
think the road looks, it looks great.
Yeah.
You know, I was glad that they finally got that
Yep.
upgraded and looks great. It was, you know, everyone was irritated, but hey, looks great now, so.
Looks nice, but they are sure are messy. They got asphalt,
Everywhere.
every side street is messed up and everything else.
Yeah, that's MDOT. It wasn't really even we couldn't hardly even complain about that, because it was their project and their contractors and,
So can our street sweepers,
Oh, it's-
eventually it'll go away, but it looks a little tacky.
It's bumpy on a motorcycle, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
and another, what are there plans for Michigan Avenue to the interchange going east?
I don't, I'm looking, if anybody else, I don't think so. Right now, that's what you see is what you're gonna get. I think there's some plans to finish that, but I don't think.
And I understand that's concrete, so that's a huge
Yeah.
undertaking to,
I think that the solution there, short of breaking it all up, would be to grind it, much like you're seeing on maybe some of the highways,
That'd
but
be great.
I don't think, but it is very bad. And I don't know
That
what
is.
that's plans are.
okay.
So right now, I think it was just from Michigan. Anybody else agreeing with that? Is Michigan out to Western?
Everything on
Yeah, okay.
Usually 2 years. Years from now.
You'll be retired, so.
Yes.
No. You won't.
It's 20 years.
Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions about anything VP related? Okay.
Date of the next meeting?
September 1st.
Any questions for Jeff or anybody else before we close the meeting? Need a motion to close it?
No, we don't need it.
Nope.
Oh, don't need a motion?
No.
Yep.
Okay.
All done.
Approved. Meeting is closed.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
What note am I on?
You're in with me, and that's because it's underground. That's where the issue
Yeah, I know.
is a little bit.
I'm 12 is what they're.
Yeah.
Well, I've got